There exists a silent pain many carry, a wound hiding behind smiles and declarations of love. It is the pain of loving so intensely that fear of loss becomes a constant shadow. How many times have you caught yourself checking your partner's phone, questioning where and with whom they were, or creating catastrophic scenarios in your mind? Perhaps you have felt your heart tighten when someone you love shows independence, or when you realize you cannot control another person's feelings. In modern society, we live a painful paradox. On one hand, we yearn for deep connections, authentic intimacy, and relationships that complete us. On the other, when we finally find someone, we begin an awkward dance between closeness and suffocation. We want to possess what we love, ensure it will never be taken from us. And in this desperate attempt to hold what is precious, we squeeze so tightly that we end up suffocating the very love we cherish. Contemporary relationships bear this contradictory mark. We desire freedom for ourselves, but security and predictability from those we love. We demand trust, yet nurture jealousy. We talk about personal space but feel abandoned when the other truly seeks their own path. And so, love transforms into a source of anxiety instead of being a refuge of peace. This feeling that happiness always hangs by a thread, depending on the presence and actions of those we love, creates a constant state of alertness. We become vigilant, controlling, insecure. The fear of loss prevents us from experiencing the fullness of the present moment. We end up losing what we most want to preserve, not because the other has gone, but because our attachment transformed love into possession. What do you feel when you imagine loving someone completely, without demanding that this person be your source of happiness? What would happen if we could enjoy the presence of those we love without the constant fear of absence? If we could love without the need to possess, to control, to limit? It seems impossible or even naive facing the reality of impermanence that we all face. After all, how can we love deeply knowing that everything and everyone we love will one day no longer be present in our lives? Buddhist wisdom offers a radically different perspective on this universal human dilemma. A path that doesn't ask us to love less, but to love better. A love that doesn't suffocate, that doesn't imprison, that doesn't cause suffering, neither for the one who loves, nor for the one who is loved. In the Buddhist tradition, there exists a fundamental concept called upadana, usually translated as attachment or clinging. It is considered one of the main causes of human suffering, especially when it comes to relationships. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from love itself, but from the way we become attached to what we love. Attachment is different from genuine love. True love desires the well-being of the other, regardless of how it affects ourselves. Attachment, however, is primarily concerned with what we can obtain, with how the loved one makes us feel, with what they represent in our life. Love liberates, attachment imprisons. Love nurtures, attachment suffocates. Love accepts, attachment demands. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha precisely identified this dynamic. The first noble truth recognizes the existence of suffering or dissatisfaction, dukkha, in our lives. That feeling that something is missing, even when we have someone we love. The second noble truth points to the origin of this suffering: craving, yearning, attachment. In relationships, this manifests as the need to control the other's behavior, to ensure they always meet our expectations, to make certain they will never abandon us. This attachment is fueled by a fundamental illusion, the belief in permanence. We ignore or resist the truth of impermanence, anicca, one of the pillars of Buddhist thought. Everything constantly changes: our bodies, our thoughts, our relationships. The people we love are in constant transformation, just as we are ourselves. When we become attached to a static version of someone or of a relationship, we are clinging to an illusion. The third noble truth brings good news. It is possible to cease this suffering. We can learn to love without the poison of possessive attachment. And the fourth noble truth shows us the path to this. The Noble Eightfold Path, which includes right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. In the context of relationships, right understanding means recognizing the impermanent nature of all things and people, not because we should love less, but because we should love more wisely. When we accept impermanence, each moment with the loved one becomes precious in itself, not as a guarantee of future moments. The Buddhist concept of unconditional love, known as metta or loving kindness, offers an alternative to possessive love. Metta is the genuine desire for happiness for all beings, beginning with ourselves. It's a love that doesn't discriminate, doesn't make demands, doesn't expect reciprocity. When we cultivate metta, we learn to desire the well-being of the loved one, even when their choices don't please us, or when they follow a path different from ours. The teaching on non-self, anatta, is also crucial in this discussion. The illusion of a permanent self separate from others creates the basis for attachment. When we perceive the interconnection of all beings, we understand that love is not about possessing someone, but about recognizing our fundamental unity. We don't need to control or possess the other because, at a deep level, we are not separated. Perhaps the most radical aspect of Buddhist teaching about love is the idea that we should cultivate equanimity, upekkha, along with love. Equanimity is the ability to keep the mind balanced in the face of life's inevitable fluctuations. In relationships, this means loving intensely, but without being devastated by the changes that occur. It is the capacity to remain present and loving even when facing the possibility of separation or loss. The Buddhist path doesn't ask us to isolate ourselves emotionally or to love less intensely. On the contrary, it invites us to love more fully, more freely, more consciously. A love that doesn't depend on permanence, that doesn't demand possession, that doesn't cause suffering. A love that understands the true nature of reality and flourishes exactly from this understanding. In the remote mountains of the Himalayas lived a monk named Tenzin. Known for his wisdom and compassion, he often received visitors seeking advice to alleviate their suffering. On a spring afternoon, when flowers were beginning to bloom after a long winter, a young man named Raj arrived at the temple. His face was marked by sleepless nights, and his eyes, once bright, now reflected only pain. "I have come from far away seeking your wisdom," said Raj, bowing respectfully. "I am suffering in a way I never imagined possible." Monk Tenzin invited him to sit and asked about his story. "I deeply loved a woman," Raj began, his voice trembling as he recalled. "We planned our future together, built dreams, promised never to part. She was the center of my universe, the reason for my awakening every morning. But one day, she simply told me that her heart had changed, that she needed to follow a different path." Tears streamed down the young man's face as he continued. "I tried everything to make her stay. Promises, gifts, threats, pleas. The more I tried to hold her, the more she pulled away. Now she is gone, and I feel as if a part of me has died. How can I continue living with this pain?" Tenzin listened attentively, his eyes full of compassion. After a moment of silence, he stood and gestured for Raj to follow him. They walked to a small stream near the temple. The crystal-clear water ran freely over the stones, reflecting sunlight in thousands of brilliant fragments. "Raj," said the monk, "take some of this water in your hands and try to hold it for as long as you can." Intrigued, the young man knelt by the stream and filled his hands with the fresh water. Initially, his hands formed a perfect container, but soon the water began to escape between his fingers. The more he tried to squeeze his hands to prevent the escape, the more quickly the water flowed away. "Do you see?" asked Tenzin. "The more you try to hold the water, the more quickly it escapes. And even if you could prevent it from escaping between your fingers, it would soon evaporate from the heat of your own hands." The monk then took a small bowl he carried and filled it with water from the stream. "Now observe," he said, placing the bowl on the bank. "The water remains in the bowl not because it is trapped, but because it has space to exist as water. The bowl merely offers a place for the water to remain for a while, but it does not try to possess or control it." Raj observed, beginning to understand the lesson. Your love was like trying to hold water in closed hands, Tenzin continued. The more you feared losing your beloved, the more tightly you tried to hold her, and the more quickly she escaped. True love is not possession. It is like the bowl that simply offers space for the other to be who they truly are. The monk then took the bowl and poured the water back into the stream. See how the water returns to its source. It was never really yours to possess. It only passed through your hands for a time. So are all relationships in our life, moments of connection, not eternal possessions. During the following weeks, Raj remained at the temple, learning the art of loving without attachment. Gradually, the pain in his heart began to transform into a deeper understanding. One afternoon, while meditating by the same stream, he experienced a moment of clarity. What made him suffer was not the loss of love, but his attachment to the idea of how love should be. By trying to make love conform to his expectations, he had suffocated its most beautiful essence. In that moment, something changed within him. For the first time since the separation, he was able to sincerely wish for his ex-beloved's happiness, regardless of whether she was by his side or not. When he finally bid farewell to Tenzin to return to his village, Raj was no longer the broken man who had arrived. His eyes had regained their brightness, but now reflected something deeper. A serenity that came from understanding that to truly love means to give freedom. Years later, Raj became known in his region as someone who loved deeply his new wife, his children, his community, but with open hands, allowing everyone around him to flourish in their own uniqueness. The lesson of the stream had become the foundation of his life. Love, like water, cannot be possessed. It can only be experienced as it flows freely. How then can we transpose this ancient wisdom to our modern life? How can we practice this love without attachment in a world that constantly encourages us to possess, control, and secure our future? It is not an easy journey, but it is possible through consistent practices that gradually transform our relationship with love and with those we love. The first practice is loving kindness meditation, metta. Set aside a few minutes every day to cultivate feelings of love and benevolence, first for yourself, then for your loved ones, for acquaintances, for people with whom you have difficulties, and finally for all beings. By developing this quality of unconditional love, you strengthen your capacity to love without the need to control or possess. Begin by mentally repeating phrases such as, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease, may I be free," and then direct these same phrases to the person you love. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease, may you be free. By doing this regularly, you will be reconnecting with the true essence of love, the genuine desire for happiness for the other. Another vital practice is mindfulness of impermanence, anicca. When you are with someone you love, take moments to consciously appreciate the transient nature of the shared moment, not as an exercise in anxiety or fear, but as a way to deepen your gratitude for the opportunity to be together now. Silently acknowledge, this moment is precious precisely because it will not last forever. Also develop the habit of identifying when love is transforming into suffocating attachment. The signs usually include constant anxiety about the relationship, need to control the other's actions, frequent jealousy, excessive fear of loss, or the feeling that your happiness completely depends on the other person. When you identify these signs, use them as opportunities to practice letting go, not of love itself, but of the attachment that accompanies it. A particularly effective technique is what we can call the open hands practice. When you feel the impulse to control or possess someone you love, visualize yourself holding that person or relationship in open hands, instead of closed fists. Breathe deeply and mentally repeat, "I love you and offer you freedom. Your happiness matters more than my need to possess you." The fear of loss often fuels possessive attachment. To work with this fear, we can practice contemplating challenging scenarios. Ask yourself regularly, if this person were no longer in my life, would I still find reasons to live fully? would I still be capable of experiencing joy and purpose? Although initially uncomfortable, this practice gradually helps us realize that, although we may love deeply, our essential completeness does not depend on anyone. Paradoxically, when we learn to love without attachment, our relationships tend to become deeper and more lasting. This is because detached love creates space for authentic growth of both the lover and the loved one. When we are not trying to control or shape the other according to our expectations, we allow them to flourish in their true nature. And there is something deeply attractive about being truly accepted and loved for who we are, not for who someone wants us to be. Remember that this journey is gradual. There will be moments of relapse when attachment will return with full force. Do not judge yourself harshly in these moments. The Buddha himself taught that the path to liberation is not linear, but an ascending spiral where we revisit old patterns at increasingly deeper levels of understanding. Also practice daily gratitude for shared moments, instead of expectations about the future. Each encounter, each conversation, each embrace is a complete gift in itself, not just a step toward an imagined future. By cultivating this perception, you will be savoring the true essence of love, the present connection, not the future possession. As you practice these techniques, you will gradually discover a lighter and more liberating way of loving. A love that does not weigh down, that does not suffocate, that does not cause anxiety. A love that celebrates the autonomy of the other, that rejoices in their growth, even when that growth leads to unexpected paths. A love that remains serene in the face of the inevitable changes that life brings. This is the love that the Buddha taught, not less intense but wiser, not less committed but freer, not less deep but more peaceful. A love that transcends attachment and becomes a vehicle not for suffering, but for liberation. As we come to the end of this reflection, perhaps you are wondering, is this love without attachment, this loving with open hands, just a form of protection against pain, an emotional shield against suffering? Would it not be safer to simply not love deeply? The answer is paradoxical and profound. Loving without attachment does not mean loving less. It means loving more wisely, more completely, more genuinely. It is diving into the ocean of love with open eyes, fully aware of its nature, both its beauty and its impermanence. When we set aside the desire to possess, love becomes purer, truer. We no longer love someone for what they can provide us or for how they make us feel, but for the wonder of who they truly are. And in this love free from expectations and demands, we discover a joy that transcends the common fluctuations of relationships. The practice of loving without suffocating is not a destination, but a continuous journey. Each day, we are invited to renew our commitment to this higher form of love. In every interaction with those we love, be they romantic partners, children, parents, friends, we have the opportunity to practice the art of loving generously, without the chains of attachment. I invite you from today to begin a very simple daily practice. In the morning, upon awakening, commit to loving with open hands. During the day, when you feel the impulse to control or possess, breathe deeply and visualize your hands opening, offering freedom. At night, before sleeping, reflect on moments when you managed to love without attachment and moments when attachment prevailed. Without judgment, just compassionate observation. Start with small gestures. Not checking your partner's phone even when distrust arises. Not asking questions that seek to control. Not imposing your expectations on how the other should behave or feel. Allowing your loved ones to have space to be who they truly are, even when their choices differ from what you imagined for them. Remember that this practice is not just for the benefit of others, but mainly for your own inner peace. Possessive attachment is like holding a burning coal. It hurts primarily the one who holds it. By learning to let go, you are not abandoning love, but freeing it from its distortions. The path to loving without suffocating is challenging and full of moments of doubt and relapse. There will be days when the fear of loss will seem overwhelming, when the desire to control will return with full force. In these moments, be gentle with yourself. The Buddha himself took many lifetimes to master this art of detached love. Just as monk Tenzin taught Raj, water only remains in the bowl because it has space to be water. Similarly, those we love only truly remain in our lives when they have space to be who they really are. And even if one day they follow another path, the genuine love we shared will never be lost. It will have become part of who we are. If this theme touched your heart, if you recognize patterns of possessive attachment in your relationships, know that you are not alone on this journey. Share your reflections in the comments below. How has attachment affected your relationships? What practices have helped you to love more freely? And if this content brought some value to your life, consider subscribing to the channel to receive more reflections on Buddhist wisdom applied to the challenges of modern life. Together we can cultivate healthier, freer, and more deeply satisfying relationships. Also suggest in the comments other topics related to human suffering that you would like to see addressed from the perspective of Buddhist wisdom. Your participation is fundamental for us to grow together in this journey of self-knowledge and inner transformation. May all beings know the love that liberates, not the love that imprisons. May all love deeply without suffocating. May all find the joy of loving with open hands,